Welcome to the Action Takers Author Podcast. I am your host, Sally Larkin Green, and today I have someone at the table with me that I just know you're going to love. Grab your favorite morning beverage and join me. Today I'm with Linda Fisk, and I'm so glad you said yes. Every author I've met has a story that's led them here. So let's start there and tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to being an author.
Yeah, I would say that, I didn't even recognize that I had stories that needed to be revealed, that needed to be shared, that needed to be honestly provided in a book format. And it was only through the process of really doing that story mining and really being reflective about my life and really understanding those pivotal moments, those pivotal stages in my life that really ended up being kind of a decision point for me, that I really recognized that, wow, some of these stories are powerful and they're lessons learned through tragedy, through misery, through failure, that really allowed me to become the person I am today. It was those points of setback, obstacles, roadblocks, difficulties, challenges that allowed me to grow the most. And those stories deserve to be heard. They deserve to be shared. They deserve to be unapologetically bound in a book, so that people have the opportunity to learn from my lessons, to learn from my setbacks, my challenges, my failures, and really understand that honestly, some of the biggest challenges facing you in your life can be the biggest points of growth and development for you as a person and as a professional.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, we've lived our life and we don't think that it's that important to other people.
Right.
And then when we take a look back, looking at where we've been and where we've grown, it's like, wow, I have been through stuff.
Yes.
I have
Right.
gone through things that maybe I can help someone else with, or my story does matter. And I think that a lot of times we think it doesn't because it's ours,
And I think as women, we tend to downplay the difficulties. We tend to gloss over the challenges. We tend to move on from the failures. We tend to just pick ourselves up and move on and minimize anything that was really, really challenging in our life. And by pausing, having that purposeful pause in my life and being able to really examine those areas of my life that maybe were the most difficult, they were the most pain filled, they were the most tragic. Those are the stories that I realized also helped me make a new decision, create a new future, develop a new possibility, create a new opportunity in my life. And it's only through pursuing those opportunities and privileges and benefits from the pain, from the difficulty, from the challenge that allowed me to be on the road I'm on today. And I'm so grateful for that. So I have been a part of 8 different books, Sally, and it has been literally every single experience has been a deep mining of those stories. It's been a time of reflection over my life to really decide, what do I have to share that's a lesson learned? And for me, in the most recent book, it was all about my diagnosis as a type 1 diabetic. So I experienced adult onset type 1 diabetes because my pancreas stopped producing insulin. Now, that normally happens because an autoimmune condition in which the immune system destroys the insulin producing cells of the pancreas. And because it's often related to something called latent autoimmune diabetes in adults, or LADA, type 1 diabetes leaves the body unable to produce insulin and requires lifelong insulin therapy to regulate blood sugar levels. Now, I will say that initially, when I was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic as an adult, well, all I heard was, wow, that's so rare. Wow, why did that happen? What did you do? What created this? Why are you now a type 1 diabetic? What did you do? And I will say that no one knows exactly why your body begins to attack the pancreas when you have adult onset type 1 diabetes. It could be a virus, it could be toxins in the environment that cause your immune system to begin attacking your cells. And this is different from type 2 diabetes because that's primarily related to insulin resistance, where type 1 diabetes results from an autoimmune process making insulin replacement and regular glucose monitoring essential parts of daily management. And I will tell you, it took me about a year to even understand the impact that this would have on my life. And during that time, I was just focused on managing my life, not talking about it, not broadcasting it, not disclosing this to anyone. It was simply trying to live with diabetes because that is challenging. And when I began looking over the last decade in my life, I realized that diagnosis was perhaps the biggest change in my life, but also created some of the biggest opportunities for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times, the struggles and the problems and the things that we go through wind up on the other side being our biggest blessing
Yep.
because it's opened the doors. It's connected us with people. It's done things that have changed our lives.
Yeah.
Struggle often does that, right? It changes things.
Yeah. And I will tell you that during the time that I was feeling the symptoms of the type 1 diabetes diagnosis, I was also training for a marathon. And let me just say, I've run, dozens and dozens of marathons and triathlons. And diabetes is more unrelenting than training for a marathon. It's much more daunting than competing in a triathlon. And it's much more grueling than any kind of athletic competition. It takes motivation to keep going, not because I can't manage it, but because living with type 1 is never ending. And no matter how well managed you are, the constant juggling of both high and low blood sugar levels just simply wears you down. And there are always situations that you can't explain to your non-diabetic friends or family members without sounding dramatic. And so what I learned from this type 1 diagnosis that completely changed my life, I am now unable to compete in triathlons and marathons, and I don't have the same ability to engage in athletic competitions as I did before. But I will tell you, even though I was very familiar with the rigor it takes and the discipline it takes to run a marathon and do a triathlon, diabetes has taught me both grit and grace. Because I will tell you, it takes grit to manage this disease. This is not for the faint-hearted. And what I have learned is that grit determines that life challenges will neither define us nor defeat us. Grit is kind of the toughness, the courage, the bravery, the resilience, the spirit that helps drive us forward. It's actually the backbone, the inspiration, kind of that steel nerve, the vision that you cling to. And this to me has been a huge lesson learned, despite the fact that I was engaged in literally hundreds of marathons and triathlons over the last 2 decades. I learned true grit through this diagnosis. And I found out that your grit is where your perseverance meets passion. They collide to create your purpose, your mission, your meaning. And at the same time, you have to show yourself grace. And grace, in my mind, is freely given favor and mercy. It's a sense of generosity and kindness, even when it's not deserved. It's understanding and forgiveness that's born out of really self-discovery and self-acceptance. And again, it wasn't the marathons, it wasn't the triathlons that taught me this lesson. It was the diagnosis. And I now understand how to apply both grit and grace to my life, and especially grace, the undeserved, unmerited, unearned embrace of acceptance. Because I will tell you, grace always turns heads. It opens minds, it softens hearts, and it leaves people in awe. And that is my biggest lesson learned from this diagnosis that completely changed my life.
Yeah. And it's a big part of self-care is giving yourself that grace
That's
because,
right.
otherwise you have that anxiety and that stress inside of you if you don't allow yourself to have that grace. So
I love that.
you said you've been part of 8 of these collaboration books, and so this book here, you talk about the grit and the grace. You're talking about the leadership book. Why don't you talk a little bit about more about your chapter in this book and more about your leadership global and what that
Yeah.
does?
So the name of the book, you're right, is Lead Her Ship, Inspiring Women Leading with Purpose. And I invite everyone to tune in to that book when it launches June 30th. So it will be launching at the end of this month, June 30th. And again, the title is Lead Her Ship, Inspiring Women Leading with Purpose. And I will tell you that my journey has been a series of lessons learned. It's been opportunities to grow and develop as a person, as a wife, as a friend, as a leader. And some of my most spectacular mistakes and failures and setbacks and challenges were also some of my most important lessons, as my circle of friends and family often offered me a stunning level of grace and forgiveness. And honestly, that's what we're creating in LeadHership Global. We create a safe haven for women to be transparent, to be open, to be honest, to talk about their challenges, to talk about their setbacks, their roadblocks, their obstacles. And we help transform women in leadership from the inside out, not with formulas, but with frameworks, not with hustle, but with alignment. Because the world doesn't need more busy women. It needs more values driven leaders that are recognized and remembered. And at LeadHership Global, we're here to help you do just that, to lead with intention and truly leave a legacy. So in LeadHership Global, we just don't promise access, we promise transformation. At LeadHership Global, every aspect of your membership is designed to elevate your leadership, expand your visibility, accelerate your business success, and really make sure that you never lead alone. Because what I know more than anything else is when times are extraordinarily tough, it's easy to go hibernate. It's easy to go shut yourself in. And that's dangerous because no one needs to live with the shame and the guilt and the difficulty of facing life changes by themselves. LeadHership Global is where women of extraordinary accomplishment come together for growth and for support and for encouragement that transcends titles. This is a private, curated community that's committed to purpose, to profit, and to personal legacy. And we are there during the tough times as well as the good times. We want to celebrate successes and we want to absolutely create the road back when you get off track.
Yeah. And what I love that you do with this is that you offer the members in there the opportunity to write a chapter in the book right along with you. And so these books become a community project
That's right.
where other people now can share their piece of the story, their struggles, their successes, and things that now they go out and help others. And so you're creating this ripple effect of stories, through
It's
the series of books.
Yeah, it's amazing, Sally, how many women I talk to say, I've always wanted to write a book, but it's too expensive. It'll take too long. I don't know how to get started. And then there's a whole litany of reasons why I haven't done that. So by inviting them to write just one chapter, just one part of what they could create in their own book, helps them break through any kind of mindset blocks that they may have in creating their own book. It allows them to take one single small step towards that book. And I will tell you that in LeadHership Global, we believe that every single woman not only defines success differently, but they all need a different level of support. And sometimes the best level of support to become an author is not money, it's not editing support, it's not promotional support, it's simply standing alongside them and helping them create that first chapter, that first step to what can be a much larger story. And again, we have created these books among a trusted circle of women leaders, founders, executives, entrepreneurs, visionaries, who all believe that success is more than status. Leadership is about impact, and that's what you get in these books. In every single book that we've collaborated with you and Linda Sunshine West on, you'll find high caliber leaders, you'll find experts, you'll find incredible trailblazers, and really people who have overcome enormous obstacles to elevate every single dimension of their leadership journey. These are stories that are motivating, that are inspiring. These are stories that take someone from tragedy to triumph. And I love that. I love when women embrace their stories and they're able to talk about what they've lived through and what they've learned from and share that unapologetically with other women to help ensure that they can learn from the lessons and learn from the tragedies and learn from the challenges and learn from the obstacles to move to the next level of success without repeating the same mistakes or the same experiences.
Yeah. And what's wonderful about the whole thing is now at the end, they have a book to hold up, a physical thing that, if they go to an event and they're speaking on stage, they can say, here, read my story in this book and offer it as either a free gift or to sell it to in the back of the room to people and have that piece of them that now a client will read their story or somebody will read their story and say, hey, I want to work with this person because now I see what they've been through. And that's what I love about the collaboration books and just having to write that one little chapter is it gives them as a business owner a little bit of a leverage and an opportunity that opens doors that they wouldn't have had before had they not invested in themselves and done this book project with you.
Yeah, I love that. And we've done so many books that at this point, we probably have several hundred women that have participated in telling their stories in a collaborative anthology. And those are the kinds of opportunities that we try to provide in LeadHership Global because we believe in blending business mastery with personal well-being, with spiritual alignment, with legacy building. And we want to create spaces for growth professionally, personally, and purposefully. And we think that becoming an author is not only on the bucket list of many, many leaders, it's also a way to grow personally and to grow with purpose, to be able to tell your story and control that narrative and shape that narrative for the next generation of readers that will be impacted by your story.
Yeah. So, Linda, what do you want the listener today to take away from reading your chapter in the book, or maybe even connecting with you and being part of the Leadership Global community? What do you want them to take away from that?
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great question. What I would say is that, in the darkest times in your life, in those places where you feel like you're walking through the valley, you are cloaked in shadow, it really does take mental toughness, perseverance, and character to be able to get you through. And I would suggest that one of the best ways to create those lifelines, to create that sense of resilience, that sense of character, that sense of mental toughness, is to be in a community of other leaders that support you, that will cheer you on, that will help you along your journey. And while I am convinced that incorporating the tenets of grit into any approach when tackling any worthy pursuit is a fundamental key to success, it's equally important to embrace the concept of grace. In this definition of grace, I'm referring to your ability to push through challenges, leaving room for failure. And if you are surrounded by a community that is going to lift you up during those difficult times, that is going to encourage you, cheer you on, and help you create a road back, that is the biggest gift that you can give yourself. Again, grace is embodied. It's an attitude, it's a characteristic and a belief. And as such, it has a contagious effect on others, including those that are a part of your family, your community, your business. Through grace, you can begin thinking positively of yourself, even though you will, of course, inevitably fall short of your expectations. We all do, but you can and will do better if you allow yourself to. Grace is a force for good. When times are challenging, it will require courage. And that's when having a community that surrounds you and lifts you up is going to be absolutely pivotal. Thank you for asking the question, Sally.
Yeah, and that's so true. I mean, we are who we hang around with, right? And just changing up our community, connecting with a different community, being part of these books creates its own little community. It having those people in your life that are going to lift you up is so important, especially for entrepreneurs and business people and anybody really. So if someone is interested in getting in touch with you, connecting with Leadership Global and being part of your community or being part of one of the books that you're going to be doing next, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
I'm active on LinkedIn. You're always welcome to get in touch on LinkedIn or drop me a note at Linda at leadhershipglobal.com, leadhershipglobal.com. So you're welcome to go to the website, you're welcome to go to LinkedIn, or you're welcome to drop me a note at Linda at leadhershipglobal.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Sally. I appreciate it.